Now is the time, a time you'll look back on, a time you adopt as inspiration. You will recollect this time, this moment, right now. Motivate yourself towards success. Overcome, take over. The time is now.
What was that, Daz? It was like jazz hands a little bit.
Wait, we have something to celebrate. Then we'll see something. How is everybody?
All right.
Good. Oh, good. I think everyone's just mesmerised by your jazz hands, Daz. I've got to be honest. We're back. Talk of the Toon. We're back. Loaded Mag NUFC. Had a little bit of a break, a little bit of a review on Sunday, but then we're back right into the thick of all things NUFC. So welcome everyone in the chat. We can see everyone coming in and joining as well. Just a quick shout out. Welcome in, obviously, Lisa Mole, our resident spanner, David Cook, Daniel Kane, Jordan Toon for Life. We've got Carl T in the house. We've got one of our sponsors, Russ, in the house as well. Welcome, Russ. Hope you're well. We've got a number of others. Mark Todd, welcome in as well, and already getting some points across already. Would I eat there? Great to have you in the chat. And Stephen Coulson back as always. Carl Segi, great to have you on when you can join us live. Look, we're back. Loaded Mag, Talk of the Toon. Get your questions in for the lads. Get your questions in for Dom, and we will make sure we get them answered tonight. Lots of different talking points that I'm sure we'll get through as well. But look, why not get the main man in? Why not getting him in whilst he's waiting? Welcome in, Chills Gazette, Dom Scurr.
Boom. Welcome, Tom.
Yes. Evening, lads. You all right?
Evening, Dom.
Evening, mate. All good.
Not too bad. How are you, fella? Everything okay? You have been able to get a bit of a breather after a busy week last week?
Yeah, you could say that. I mean, it was a hectic last week, getting to Wembley, transfer deadline day, players actually coming in as well, a couple. And so, yeah, it's calmed down slightly now, but looking forward now to Bournemouth at the weekend, a long journey. So back to business, really, back to usual.
Definitely. Look, we were just kind of briefly talking about it as a sort of a five before we went on. You know, do you prefer the non-transfer windows when it's just focused purely on football, or do you like the little bit of the hustle and bustle of what the transfer window brings? What do you prefer? It's
an interesting one from a company perspective, from a newspaper perspective. The transfer window is obviously a big thing. So if I'm a company man, I love the transfer window. Give me that every month. Get loads of clicks on the website. But if I'm being honest, the sort of normal run-of-the-mill season, you go into games, you're preparing, you're covering the games, interviewing players, and it's not always on your phone or online, and you're getting rumours thrown at you, and you're having to look into them and see things, because 90% of it is in the transfer window, particularly since the Newcastle takeover, has been rubbish in terms of the rumours, and it's just seeking out that 10% which actually could happen. And so yeah, it's certainly easier now that's over, but yeah, I think from a professional perspective, obviously the transfer window is a very big month for journalists and for the football clubs that we cover.
Definitely. And look, I think before we get to some of the questions, and I'm sure people have got questions already flying in for you and us all, really. Just want to get your thoughts on the West Ham game. Lots of fallout from that. Some people saying really disappointing result, worried about top four, worried about the performances in general. What was your perspective having watched the game on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't have got off to a much better start. I mean, finding the net twice, albeit one of the goals ruled out inside the opening 3 minutes. But I think the ball had actually only been in play less than a minute with the VAR check and everything. And I thought, brilliant, what a good start. If anything, Newcastle maybe scored too early, because after that, I thought West Ham played well. I mean, West Ham, people were saying before the game, in a bit of a false position. There's obviously been in and around the European places the past few seasons, struggling this season. They certainly didn't play like a team who were at the wrong end of the Premier League table. So they gave Newcastle a game. Having said that, I thought it was a sloppy goal to concede. Kieran Trippier, I'd argue, could have done slightly better for the goal, which is a rare criticism of him. But otherwise, in the attacking third, Newcastle didn't really offer an awful lot. I thought Callum Wilson probably could have scored a couple more goals than the one he did. Anthony Gordon's introduction sort of sparked the game and into life and gave Newcastle a bit of energy final 20 minutes or so. But it is a disappointing point for Newcastle, but that any time you fail to win at St James's Park in the position Newcastle are in is going to be considered a disappointing point. So looking at the bigger picture, the grand scheme of things, as disappointed as well, it's good in a way that we're disappointed, because it shows the standards that we're now holding ourselves to as a club.
Look, boys, obviously me and Daz did the review after the West Ham game, so we want to get your points as well, Chris and Richie. Richie, we'll start with you. Just what were your overriding feelings with regards to the West Ham game? Was it 2 points dropped, or was it, a point gained and perspective, needed with regards to the view to the rest of the season?
No, I definitely think it was 2 points dropped. Obviously, we did away days last week, and our dad said we would win 2-0. And to be fair, I thought it started off, it was looking a good prediction to start with. But I think the main concern I've got, because obviously there's been a lot of talk over ASM, and people are, need to give him a bit more time, give him a run. The team, other people are saying they need to bring Gordon in and stuff. I said from day one, I think this season's going to be make or break for ASM, full stop. I think it looks as though it's going to turn out that way. If he wants to be part of this project, we'll know in the summer. It was clear as day, the other comments that came the other day when he said about there was going to be interest, and there's always going to be interest in him. He's that type of player. He's probably one of our only real sellable assets that we've got that we potentially would let go of at this moment in time. So that one's obviously, that's going to be like a play-by-ear thing as it goes forward. But I think the main concern that I found from the game, well, it's not just the West Ham, it's the Southampton game as well, is we've come out the trap starting really well, looking like, prime Brazil or Barcelona or whatever, and look like we're going to blow teams away. But then all of a sudden, after that first 20 minutes or so, it just capitulates, and we seem to be on the back foot. We're just, when we were talking last week when we were doing the semi-final, I know I was probably being a bit harsh on the lads at times, but they couldn't string passes together, and it was. And I even tempered the fate by saying there was the occasional little brief spell of what looked like Bruce ball, where the amount of times the passing was going straight to the opposition and stuff like that. So, that's my main concern. I don't know if it's just because obviously, especially on Saturday, we didn't have Bruno playing, and obviously Bruno makes that midfield tick and stuff like that. Don't get me wrong, I think the three lads did a decent enough job on Saturday, but obviously not one of them is Bruno, if that makes sense. So I think that's my major concern, is just it seems like we go all guns ablaze and then we seem to be out of buffets. I I would rather it be not as frantic, but still be on the front foot, but make it like, be a bit more dominant over the whole spell of the game rather than just a brief patch. I don't know if you've talked about that at all, but that was just my main concern of the last 2 games.
No, it's an interesting one. Lots of possession, but yeah, in terms of the dominance, it seemed to dip at certain points of the game. Chris, what were your thoughts with regards to the game overall? Like Richard's made some points about dropping off after a really quick, fiery start and not having that dominance over the course of the full 90 minutes. Now, how did you see the game?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't really disagree with what Rich said. Like, it was an electric start. Like, to think we scored 2 goals in the space of like 2.5 and 3 minutes. Great, fantastic start. And I think the only disappointment for me was that it didn't kind of continue. Like, we did drop off a little bit, but. This kind of relates back to what I was saying about the transfer window, in terms of we don't have many backup players or players that, are ready and available to play in certain positions. In an ideal world, obviously 3-4 years' time, we will be able to rotate our squad. We see what City do. We see what Liverpool do, although not very successfully at the minute. But, in the likes of Arsenal, they've got players that they can kind of bring in. Same with Man United as well. And I think the struggle that we're going to have for the remainder of this season is obviously keeping our fingers crossed that we don't get any major injuries. I mean, we've got Bruno out now for the next 2 games, so we've lost him for 1, and now we've got 2 further games. But my biggest concern from the game, I suppose it's probably from the fans' reaction. Like, there's a lot of fans who were very tetchy and very panicky. And I know it's cliche to say, look at where we were 12 months ago and all that. And, I am one of those brigades. But then equally, it's like, what? Like, if we lose a game, are we just going to go into absolute meltdown? Because eventually we're going to lose a game. Like, I know people don't want to hear that. And it's like sometimes, when we've been on away days and like, myself or Keith or yourself, Pete, we might say, oh, it'll be a draw or it'll be a loss. And sometimes, people can go, oh, why are you being negative and stuff like that? And it's like, well, yeah. It's like everyone just goes into meltdown. And it's just, we can't keep the form up that we have been as much as we'd want to, because we don't really have the squad depth to do that. And I think the biggest thing for me, as I say, was, it was disappointing that we dropped off, and it was disappointing that we couldn't keep up the intensity. And to be fair, if we'd have made it 2-0, that probably would have been pretty much game done. But because it was 1-0 for so long, and then West Ham started to get a feel into the game, and then obviously Paqueta gets the equaliser, you could kind of see the doubt within the players, and they were a little bit like, oh, we can't lose, we're at home, we don't lose at home. And I think that's where the nerves started kicking in. And then obviously the whole team's looking around thinking, oh, we haven't got Bruno. That must be a big psychological thing for the players, because they know how important he is and they know how much the fans absolutely adore him. So I suppose my overall thoughts on the match, it was 2 points dropped. We could have won that game and probably should have won the game, especially when you look back at the stats. But equally, West Ham aren't a bad team. I know where they are in the table, and, I know they say the table doesn't lie, but they've still got a team full of top quality players. I mean, we saw the performance of Declan Rice, who was absolutely outstanding. And he really stepped up, didn't he? And Lucas Paqueta, he's not bad, is he? Let's be honest. So I think we'll look back and go, do you know what? It was a solid point. Yeah, we could have won, but there's going to be tougher games. Like I think Bournemouth away, that's not going to be an easy game. People will look at the league table and go, oh, we should comfortably win that. But it's not going to be easy. There is no easy games in the Premier League. And unfortunately, because, as I said before, we've not got that squad depth, we've not got that rotation, this is where we will eventually get found out. And it's how we react, and it's how we come back, from the loss. We just need to all get behind the lads. And I think, the fact that we've only lost 1 game this season is absolutely incredible. But when we do lose that game, I think we've all just got to keep our heads and just be like, do you know what? We're so far down the line than where we thought we'd be. We thought that this would be happening probably in 2 or 3 seasons. And the fact that it's happening this season is great. But, it's a slow process, and we just kind of have to trust Eddie Howe and trust the squad. And it's very easy for people, as I've seen with St. Maximin, people going, oh, we need rid of him, and, bring Gordon in, let's start Gordon. And it's like, let's make that decision once we've seen Maxi start 5, 6, 7 games. I mean, I haven't heard what you boys have said from the West Ham review show. I haven't watched it, but my underlying feeling from that game, I know, I need to catch up on it, guys. I need to catch up on
Gone. No, that's enough of that. Yeah, he's gone. He's gone.
I deserve that. No, but I, you know, I see all the negativity around St. Maximin, and don't get me wrong. I know that like there's been rumours have been linked with other clubs, and he made that comment. But when you actually drill down into what he said, he hasn't really said anything wrong. He's just said, you know, I don't want to be on the bench, which surely you want to hear from a player. You don't want him to hear, yeah, I'm quite happy pick up me 80 grand a week and not play. Do you know what I mean? Sorry,
we'll
Peter.
Get the ASM talk. We'll get your.
Sorry.
ASM talk.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what you say, and as well, Dom as well. But I think, Daz, you've got a question for Dom. You want to fly
I've a question for Dom as we were chatting there. I just thought of the discussion. Right. Let's hypothetical situation, Dom. Mad Dog Tyndall can't finish the rest of the season. Eddie Howe says, "Bring me that lad from the press conference. The lad that knows what he's talking about." And they said, Jordan Cronin, no, not him. He knows nothing. Let's bring in Dom, that guy. So they put in a call to the Shields Gazette, and Eddie Howe brings you in as an assistant. You have to do the same role as Mad Dog, get in everyone's faces. So, but he comes to you and says, "What are we going to do? How are we going to mix it up for the Bournemouth game? What would you do, Dom?"
Oh, and I have to mix it up. I have to.
Not necessarily.
No, your choice.
Oh. So I'm in charge. I'd like to see Alexander Isak start the game. I know Callum Wilson's just scored, and Eddie Howe would never take him out the team after just scoring, especially on his return to Bournemouth as well. But whenever I've seen Isak play recently, I think he's done well, deserved a start. That's what I'd do if I had to make a change, maybe start Anthony Gordon ahead of Alan St. Maximin. But if I'm being honest, I'm going to have to be boring, like Eddie Howe, and sort of agree with what he would do, which will probably be name the same starting 11 that played against West Ham, but try and be a bit more positive on the front foot. Maybe, actually, take possibly Joe Willock out the team and then put Gordon or Isak in as a sort of number 10. That's something that could potentially work to put Newcastle on the front foot and be a bit more attacking. So that's one change that I'd potentially make.
Nice. No, I'm sure you'll take it all on board.
Right, tell me where to go, I think.
Now, I don't know if you boys noticed this in the West Ham game, but there was a chunk of the game where it almost looked like, and it said I say it almost looked like it was where Joe Linton was pretty much playing as a number 6 because he was having to cover that space. And look, we had him down as man of the match. I think he was our best player by a mile. I thought he was.
You had.
He was okay. You didn't, but lots of the chat did. Let's say.
Who did you pick up?
I think I picked Trippier because I know he was slightly a fall for the goal, but it just everything's going through him. Like with Bruno out, everything kind of goes through him as well. But he just kind of stands out more with Bruno missing for me.
Sorry, Pete. Carry on. Sorry.
No. It's
Chris.
I forgot what Trippier that Daz went for Trippier, but I just think, could he play as a 2? Could him and Longstaff potentially play as a 2 and allow a number 10 to play, in that position? Because you've got Gordon that can play that role, you've got ASM that can play that role, Miggy can play that role. They're all traditional number 10s, really, that have come into the club that are playing on the wing. Maybe Gordon a little bit less, but they were both ASM and Miggy were both born as number 10s. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think Eddie Howe needs to change the formation of the team in order to get us playing more dominating football, certainly in attacking areas? That's an open question, by the way, to any of you.
Do you know what? I think it's an interesting point. I've just put in the comments there 4-2-3-1. Pete is saying. I think that's what you were saying, Pete. It would be interesting because let's be honest. We don't really want to tinker with that back four I don't think that would be wise to do. And you're right in that, centre midfield is where we're struggling most at the minute, isn't it? And I think we've all kind of alluded to the fact that it would be interesting to see Joe in that holding position, but maybe Eddie doesn't trust Joe for whatever reason that may be. So if you had Joe and say you had Joe and Sean Longstaff in the holding position, you can then have your front three of, say, Maxi, Isak, Almiron, and then you'd have Wilson up top. So you're getting Isak and Wilson in the team, which is what Don was saying, drop one of the central midfielders, bring Isak in. And what's interesting as well then is how great would it be, with Sean Longstaff's legs are tiring, 60, 65 minutes, and you've got someone like Joe Willock to come off the bench. You've got someone like Elliot Anderson who can replace one of the front, the front three behind Wilson. You could drop, you could bring Gordon in, or you could drop Isak into the number 9, bring Wilson off and put Gordon on the left and put Maxi in the number 10. It just gives you those more options, because the only problem is when we're playing with this 4-3-3 system, I don't know about you boys, but the way I look at it, I think, well, we've got Joe Linton, we've got Sean, and we've got Joe Willock. Now, as soon as one of those goes down, or one of them needs subbing, or they get a bit leggy, it's like, well, we've got Elliot Anderson and then you start to. So is it about adapting, and is it about trying to, shake things up so that it fits the squad that we've got at the minute? Obviously, when Bruno comes back, that changes. But certainly for the next couple of games, why not try it? Why not give it a go? Because it can't be much different to what we're doing now. It's just in terms of having to look at a different shape and making sure that Joe and Sean kind of know how they need to kind of help get the ball forward for the extra person who's then going to be in the number 10.
Yeah, I think we'd probably all try that option, or we give it a go. But Eddie Howe, can't see him, like Dom was saying as well, you can't see him changing to something like that. And I think it'll only when his hand is forced, he'll try something like that. And I hope it does work when he does have to. But there could be more injuries as we get along the way, or more bookings. And Joe Linton, I know someone asked the question about Joe Linton as well, because he's sitting on 8 bookings, and here it is from John asking, will Eddie have a word with Big Joe about the yellow card situation? Like we could lose Big Joe before the cup final, yes, and hopefully not the cup final. Well, so
no, you're right. We're going to lose Big Joe, I think, at some point, because I'm not. If I'm right, I think it's not until right towards near the end of the season where that 10 bookings kind of get scrapped.
I think it's the end of April there, Pete.
It's normally around that point, but I wasn't sure whether it goes into May, just because the season goes into June, because it goes a little bit longer. But even if it is the end of April, like realistically, with all due respect to Joe Linton, is he really going to avoid 2 bookings between now and April? So we're going to potentially lose him at some point for 2 games. And we've got to then hope that when missing in those 2 games, that all of those other midfielders are available, which then goes back to the point. We've talked about the potential of Eddie Howe changing the formation. Will he have to change the formation? Will he be forced to? This is the situation. Richie, right at the beginning, made a point that we weren't in attacking areas dominating or looking the sort of threat after the first 15, 20 minutes like we wanted them to, like we normally do. We're not scoring as many goals. That's obvious. We look at after the Leicester game, we haven't scored many goals at all. Do we need? Does Eddie Howe need to do something, out of the ordinary to get something else out of this team? Like Dom, you're at the games, you see this day in, like, week in, week out. Are you seeing that maybe this team needs to be changed in terms of tweaked formation wise, or do you think Eddie Howe will get the best out of these players in this current formation the way it is?
I think he certainly can get the best out of the players in the current formation. I don't think it's a case of Newcastle they're still on top of teams. They're still getting the majority of the possession, the majority of the chances in games. It's just a case of in and around the penalty area that's costing them, the final pass, the final shot that's costing them, and that's more down to the personnel and that individual's form and being in the right place at the right time. I don't think the formation is necessarily a problem at the moment. And Eddie Howe's always been fairly strict with the formation he plays since he's arrived at Newcastle. I think other than his first couple of games where the team was so ingrained in them playing three at the back. Other than that, I think he's gone to a sort of 4-3-3 setup and sort of stuck with it really since he's been here. So I don't think a few draws or 4 draws in 5 games would make Eddie Howe completely sort of rip his tactic book up and try and start again or anything like that. So because ultimately Newcastle aren't losing games, they're still statistically outplaying teams, higher expected goals than the opposition. So it's just a case of the personnel being able to finish off the chances and create chances when they get in those areas. You see examples like on Saturday, Anthony Gordon plays a great ball for Callum Wilson. Callum Wilson should score. Callum Wilson should score a header. Dan Burn gets in great areas down the left side, but he's a centre-back by trade, so he doesn't always have the ability to put in a great ball into the box like someone like Kieran Trippier would. So it's just, I don't think the formation's an issue. It's just sometimes the personnel being in the right place, the right time, and having that conviction to finish off the chances.
Would you agree with that, Richie, or is there another perspective from you with regards to potentially tweaking that formation? I mean, PDK, I'm just going to steal the comments for a second, as I apologise. He's put a plan B to break down a low block team would be good, is to have another option there potentially being available. What do you think?
Well, to be fair, on that sort of point, you've got to look at the Fulham game. You know, he did resort to like more of probably the most attacking lineup we've had when we had obviously Isak, Wilson was on, ASM was on, I think Murphy. We had 4 attacking players on the pitch at the time, and it got us over the line to get that. And it took a lot to break them down because Fulham have been defending. Well, to be fair, they've been playing very well as a team, full stop, this season. They've beaten Chelsea. They've got results against other big teams in and around them. So, that wasn't it was a hard task to do when we did it. But if you go back a few weeks before, we didn't do it against Leeds. We pretty much dominated them hands down. We just couldn't break them down. So I don't necessarily think, as I agree with what Dom's saying, I don't think we need to change the 4-3-3 aspect, especially when Bruno's only missing for the next couple of games. And obviously then when he comes back in, yes, there's that risk of Joe getting these, picking up these 10 yellows, and then he gets a 2-match ban. But if he can ride out a little bit longer, and then you have Isak back in the mix as well, you also then have a bit more strength and depth. You've got options to come off the bench, because I imagine you're going to have probably Willock, I'd say, on the bench, or whoever. Or if you want to protect Joe, you could start him on the bench. And then obviously you've got 2 options of Gordon and Maxi to come on, or however he wants to work with those, the 2 wide players, and whoever he wants to play through the middle. But I think you saw against Fulham, he's not afraid, if the personnel's there, which it was against Fulham, to throw the kitchen sink at the not for like a prolonged period of time. I think it was 10-15 minutes that he did it for Fulham, but we managed to break it down. I think he's not afraid to do it. So it's yes, he was like a 3 at the back, as Dom said when he first came in, but he does like this system he's got this season. It's really worked for the lads. The lads seem to know their roles in and out and stuff like that, and they know where players are going to be. But at the same time, that the professional footballers, they should be adaptable to formations as well. Even even if you do go to a 4-2-3-1, it's mainly having an attacking midfielder is a 10. I think Pete, you mentioned it before. ASM and Miggy have both played in number 10. For me, Miggy's the ideal number 10. That was his predominant position when he was brought into the club, and he's never really played there. And you know what I mean? Like, and you've seen that link-up play in and around the box, especially for the goal he scored at Leicester with him and Bruno. If you could imagine that, obviously in and around the box as well, it could create spaces for other people to come in from the flanks, or coming through from runs like Sean Longstaff's been doing as well recently. So there's a lot of it you can play with. It's obviously, I think sometimes it's just having the personnel there. Like obviously for West Ham, we didn't have Isak, we didn't have Bruno. Probably two of our best players. And then you look at the bench, and then, as Chris said before, you look at the bench, and it's like you've only really got Gordon who can come on and change the game, which he nearly did. But it's it's getting to the point now. Look, lads, the next few games, yes, it's going to be tight with Bruno missing, but after that, we've got a decent 14, 15 in the squad if we can ride that out without any injuries, touch wood, for the rest of the season. And then you're going to, as we've said numerous times on the show, that's when you're going to have your Willocks, your Longstaffs, your Shaws, your Burns, your Miggies as being probably the impact players coming on, quality players who've got us through this season, who can change games, but they'll be coming on us off the bench and strengthen. So, look, so it's only a few months to the end of the season. Let's enjoy what we've got. At the end of the day, look where we were last season. We were on the way out of the relegation zone at this point in time.
No, you know why I'm laughing, because Mark Taylor's in the chat, Arsenal fan. Normally goes on to Dan Potts' channel, and he's just put a comment on saying, "Anti-football as always. You boys are used to it." He honestly, we live rent free in his head. Absolutely rent free, and I love it. Mark Taylor, keep going. I love it because it just makes you smile every time I see those comments. They still can't get over the fact that we're the only team to take a point off them at the Emirates, and they just can't handle it. It's great stuff. Look, so many in the chat watching the show. Thank you very much. Click those thumbs up, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. But look, on what was really worrying news the last day or two with all the events that are going on in Turkey and Syria with the earthquake. There was obviously some news with regards to Christian Atsu, who was caught, I think, on the 9th floor as the earthquake hit. But there has been some welcoming news that I think Newcastle United put out some official word today that Christian Atsu, as it says on the screen, pulled alive from Turkey earthquake rubble. Great news for Christian Atsu that he's alive and hopefully healthy and well, and we don't know that for sure, so hopefully all those checks now he's out will be positive. But clearly on top of that, there are still thousands that are unaccounted for in Turkey and Syria, so we do pray for safe returns for everyone there. But yeah, we just wanted to get that news out, because obviously Christian Atsu in isolation, a servant for Newcastle, a good servant for Newcastle, never moaned, never complained, did a job for Newcastle and went waving to the fans and very respectful. So we always appreciate that, and we always appreciate players that played under some of the worst owners ever to grace English football. So that's never ever easy as well. Best wishes to Christian Atsu, and his boys are Loaded. I'm sure Dom as well. Wishes for positive news for that.
Exactly.
So just wanted to get that out as well. So thank you all for reminding us in the chat, and we put a little something out there. Boys, where do we go next? You know what? There's so many questions in the chat for Dom, and I want to get as many questions in for Dom before he goes, because we're limited on time with Dom. We appreciate him taking the time to come and join us. What have we got that could spark some interesting comments and debate?
Well, we could.
Yeah. Can I throw this one up off Geordie's Team for Life? Just a straight answer for Dom here. Dom, do we think that Arteta snitched on Pep?
Put me on the spot here. I can't really answer that. I don't think so, no. But
in your non-professional opinion,
yeah. Maybe in the green room afterwards, I'll give a different answer. But
fair play. Good one to back it off.
Like that.
Chris, Dazza, what we got?
Yeah, yeah, we will get into the city stuff in a few minutes, maybe. But Dom, if you want to talk about the city stuff, that's cool as well. But there's one here from Mark Todd. Is I would think we're only in the position we are now, I guess, because Miron was totally overachieved. Now that he's reverted to normal, where are the goals coming from? And I guess this links into a bit to what we talked about, how you would switch it up, Dom, and what we talked about on the review show, Pete, how he might make changes potentially or not. But where do you think the goals are coming from, Tom? Or from Dom?
I mean, I think the answer is quite obvious. I mean, Miguel Almiron scored 9 goals. Fair enough. He's top scorer. He went through that purple patch in October, November time. Callum Wilson's gone 12 games for club and country without a goal. He's still only 2 goals behind him. He scored 7 goals this season for Newcastle. So he's still a natural goal scorer in the side. Alexander Isak scored 3 goals in 3 starts for Newcastle in the Premier League. Again, he can contribute. You're looking now, Anthony Gordon potentially could. He's not got a brilliant scoring record, but he can help be a creative influence, and he does have an eye for goal as well. I think it's 6 goals since the start of last season, which for the position he's in is better than, say, Alan St. Maximin or someone like that, as many goals as he's contributed. So I think there's still goals in the side, absolutely. I mean, we've got a £63 million striker that we haven't really got the chance to see this season. So if we're saying there's not goals in the side, then something's amiss, really. So we've got Callum Wilson, Alexander Isak. I think if those 2 can stay fit, we shouldn't have too much of a problem finding goals. It's just a case of getting that killer instinct and eye for goal back in the final third, and an eye for the pass in and around the penalty area.
Boys, just to add on to that with regards to the goals, what do you think? Right, and I'm going to list the players. Okay, what do you think is an acceptable goal contribution for each of these players by the end of this season, bearing in mind what they've already got this season? Okay, so what's an acceptable goal tally for Miguel Almiron? I think he's got 9 goals, 1 assist. I don't know all of the stats for these guys, but it's just something that came to my head now. So Miggy's got 10 goal contributions. What do you think is acceptable for him with just under half a season left to go? Alexander Isak, how many goals he scored? I think he scored 4 goals. Is it 3?
3.
3 goals this season, and an assist. So 4 goal contributions. What's acceptable to him? Alan St. Maximin, okay, hasn't scored, but I think he's got a couple of assists.
He scored 1. He's definitely scored 1.
He's got the worldie Wolves.
I was there. I should know that. 1 goal and a couple of assists. So 3 goal contributions. What's acceptable for him? And then you've got Callum Wilson, 7 goals. I think he might have 1 assist for the Isak goal. So 8 goal contributions for him. And then Gordon, he's got, I think he's got 3 goals and 1 assist this season for Everton. Forget the Everton stuff. What can he do for Newcastle between now for the end of the season? There's a lot there. There's a lot there. Even if you just want to name one player and just throw a player out there and say, right, this is what they're on. This is what I expect them to achieve by the end of the season. What do we think for those attacking players? Because Dom's right. We've got attacking players that should be getting goals and assists across the team. No doubt about it. Look, Daz, I'll start with you. Even if it's just one player.
Right, I'll go Miggy. I think Miggy, as the question said, he's overachieved. He's got his quota, but he can get more and he should get more on still. On the others, I'm going to go Callum Wilson. I think he should get 15, and what might be goals might be assists as well in that for the season. ASM needs to up his tally, but he needs to be playing as well. His injury ruled him out for an awful lot of the season. Isak, I want to see more from him. So again, injury ruled him out. So I'll take 10 for Isak, and ASM, I'm going to say, if he said he had 3 already, I'm going to say 8.
Okay, and that's goal contributions. So goals out.
Yeah. Okay,
exactly. Richie, what do you think? Do you agree with any of what Daz has said, or would you want to change any and add to that? Because I'm not sure if Gordon was mentioned. What do you think?
See, for me, I'm going to do more of as a collective rather than an individual, because you've got to look at we've scored 34 goals in 21 games. So for me, if we really, we've got 17 games left of the season. Roughly averaging, I would say you want to be aiming for like average of 2 goals a game on average. Really, realistic. So that's 34 goals, which is there. It's what we're on now, really, for 17. So we've got that on 21, but there's been a few where we've dominated games, and obviously like we've talked about the Palace game when we obviously had a goal disallowed, which should have stood. Then you look at the Leeds one where we absolutely battered them as well. So there's games where we should have scored, we haven't. So obviously there could be a few more on that. So for me, if you look at the midfield, and then obviously the front players, if you average 34 goals between 8 players, I would say four goal contributions each, roughly, between the attacking players alone. That's where I'd be possibly looking at. And obviously, then you're still going to have people like Trippier who might get the odd free kick one as well. But obviously, he gets his goal contributions from assists and crosses and stuff as well, and corners. So if you make it up on that sort of thing, if you look at on those eight front players alone, 4 goal contributions for the rest of the season each, whether it be assists, because we know assists are just as important as goals. So
okay.
That's big.
Yeah, nice collective there, Richie. Chris, what are your thoughts? You can do it individually. You can just focus on maybe one or 2 players. Completely up to you.
Yeah, well, I made a couple of little notes when you were going through them. Then Pete, I think
Chris.
I think for Miggy, and I'm talking goal contributions, like you said there, Pete. I think a minimum for Miggy this season would have to be 15. So, like, are you right in saying 9 goals and 1 assist?
Yeah, so 10
I'd expect 15. So, so an extra 5, whether that be goals or assists, for me, that's the bare minimum. I mean, we all hoped that he'd reach 15 goals, which probably looks a little bit unlikely now, given that he'd have to score 6 goals in 18 games, which is probably unlikely. I think it's fair to say. Callum Wilson, same double figures. The only problem, I suppose, with this question is Alexander Isak. Could Alexander Isak get into double figures goals wise? Yeah, I genuinely think he could, but it depends how many minutes he gets. If you tell me Alexander Isak starts 15 out of the next 18, I'd be like, yeah, I feel confident he'd get 6-7 goals there, obviously, as well as goal contributions. And same with Gordon. The only thing I'd say about Gordon is I'd lower the expectancy, because yes, he's going to come in, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed and stuff like that, but he's still got to, get used to his new surroundings, get used to the system, the way Eddie Howe plays, get used to his teammates. So I wouldn't be expecting as much of Gordon. If he made 5 or 6 goal contributions between now and the end of the season, I think that'd be pretty good. And Callum Wilson, whenever Callum Wilson's fit, I expect Callum Wilson to start, and I think Callum Wilson could, for me, he could easily get another 7, 8, 9 goals, in my opinion. Not just goal contributions. I think he could, he's gone on that, like Dom said before, he's gone on that barren run. And, if he picks up his form and, he can start bagging a couple of goals a game against certain opposition. So there's no reason why he couldn't score another 7, 8, 9 goals for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, good thoughts. Good thoughts on that. I think more than acceptable. That's for sure. Dom.
Just to add, I didn't do ASM, did I? Sorry, ASM. Again, similar to Isak, he's got to get on the pitch. He needs the minutes, and I hope now he gets a run of games. I hope he gets 4 or 5 games on the bounce. People talking about dropping him, people talking about maybe we need to move on, stuff like that. Absolutely fine, but let's give him a few starts and then make that decision once he's had the game time, once he's got up to speed. We saw the effort that he put in at the weekend. Yes, his output wasn't fantastic, but you could clearly see that he was definitely more defensive minded, and he was clearly trying to follow Eddie Howe's instructions. But I know we're not going to touch on him, so I won't say anymore.
Yeah, no worries. No, that's absolutely fine. Dom, do you want to answer that question? I know you got to shoot soon.
Yeah, I think it's a tough one because you have to sort of do it on the pretense that each player is staying fit and playing every game. Obviously, on that, not that you could get every player in the team, but I think Miguel Almiron's exceeded expectations. If you were said 10 goal contributions at the start of the season, you probably would have taken that. If he can bump that up, like the other lad said, to 15, that would be sort of expected and would represent a really good season for him. Callum Wilson the same. If he could get 15 goal contributions, he's got a few assists this season, which is unlike him. So he's probably pushing that 10 mark already. So if you can get 15, maybe close to 20 in total, if you can go on a decent scoring run, now he's back amongst the goals, that would be good. Alexander Isak, I think 10 for him. He's got 4 already, I think it is. So if he can get 5-6 more goals or 5 goals, 1 assist, then it's a decent first Premier League season for him, given he's been out for most of it already. Anthony Gordon, I don't think, like Chris said, there's no real expectation on him. It's just getting him on the pitch, getting him ready. If he can get a couple of goals, couple of assists, that's fine for him, around that 5 mark. St. Maximin, again, I don't expect he'll do this, but if he can push 10, if he was playing every game, then if he can push 10, that would be good. But I think assists are probably more his game. I think he's got 2 or 3 already this season, and I think those came in the Man City game, if not all 3. I think it was. So if he can get in the team and start creating chances, creating goals, then Newcastle could potentially benefit from that. And I think the one criticism of St. Maximin is he probably doesn't score enough goals. So he would have to sort of buck that trend and go on a real scoring run if he were to get 10 contributions by the end of the season. But I mean, based on the quality he has shown in the past, not that he's shown on Saturday, but there's no reason why he couldn't get that if he's able to stay in the team.
No, that's fair enough. Some great points there. Dom, I think you've got to shoot now. Is that right?
Yeah. I could take one more question if there are any. Make it a good one.
An easy one about Man City, so that'll be a quick one, I'd say. All right, let's go. I just remember one from Tom Dixon. It'll be a nice quick one here, I think. Do you think, pass it or just verbally say, do you think Newcastle will go bring in a younger striker in the summer? I think for me, the answer is yes, with Callum Wilson getting 30 years old at this stage. What are your thoughts, Dom?
Yeah, I think they will. Eddie Howe's always stressed, Dan Ashworth's always stressed bringing that age of the squad down, investing in youth players. They've been linked with some young strikers, the lads from Brazil recently. So I fully expect them to. They still need to replace Chris Wood, who's obviously a veteran, I suppose, in terms of his age. So he'll be on his way in the summer. So they need to strengthen the striking options, and I think young players are probably the priority, to be honest. So yeah, I fully expect them to sort of scour the market for a young striker, potentially 21 or under, but someone who's experienced and ready enough to play Premier League football.
Can I ask you a quick tag onto that, Dom? I know you've got to shoot, mate. It was just something that's just popped in my head, and I thought I must ask Dom. You know, you're saying that they want to bring down the average age of the squad, which I fully believe. And, you know, we Dan Ashworth and co have said, haven't they, that they don't want to buy superstars. They want to make superstars. And I totally get that. Do you think if another Kieran Trippier-like deal becomes available, so say somebody becomes available in the Premier League, whether that be from City, Arsenal, Man United, whoever, do you think they would break the mold purely because of who the player is and maybe their attitudes and the fact that they bring that experience, that leadership?
Potentially, they've always said that if the right player comes along at the right price, but I think Kieran Trippier was certainly the transfer they needed to make. He was the first one through the door. They needed a big name to get the ball rolling, if you like, and he was the experienced head. A player Eddie Howe knows. Kieran Trippier obviously wanted to come, and that was a deal that was done very much between Eddie Howe and Kieran Trippier rather than the owners getting involved and meddling too much. So I think they've been quite clear with the sort of transfer strategy, if you like, and Kieran Trippier does fall slightly outside of that, but obviously the impact he's made, if someone of that ilk, like an international footballer, someone who's gone abroad, won trophies, if you can get someone like that in your team and not break the bank to do it, then there's no reason why not. But I think the club have, like you say, been very clear with what the sort of transfer approach is, and signing players into the 30s on huge deals is probably not the best option at this moment in time for the club.
Dom, been an absolute pleasure to have you.
Thanks, Dom.
Thank you for taking the time.
Cheers, lads.
But you take care, and look, I'm sure we'll get you one again soon, later on down the line.
Aye, spot on. Thanks a lot, lads. I'll catch you later.
See you later.
Take it easy.
Bye.
See you later.
Right.
As always.
Oh yeah, I totally agree, Pete. Oh, it's great to have Dom on and give us the insight of what's happening on the ground. No, I just want before we move into our next topic, we just want to give a shout out to to Mark Taylor for the donation to the channel. Thanks a million, Mark.
I said he was rent. We were rent free in his head. Is that why he's put that £5? But no, in all due respect, big respect to Mark. And look, he's a Newcastle fan at heart. Look, he wants us to win a trophy. Look at that. It's changed.
Right, I think maybe this would be a good time, because we will revert back to Newcastle talk again, but maybe this would be a good time to bring up the Man City talk, because there's a lot of interest of it in the chat, and this picture kind of tells it all for me. There's a lot of cooking going on in the background there, cooking of books, and one of them being the rule book as well, by the looks of it, because Man City like numbers. Here's a lot of numbers. Man City charged by Premier League accuracy of financial information, 50 alleged number of breaches of Premier League rules, 8 less year of manager remuneration, 8 rules broken there, 25 rules around profitability and sustainability, and 30 is another number of rules they've broken as well, alleged number of rules they've broken. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff, a lot of talk about it. I know that the chat is hopping as well, and asking a lot of questions on this topic, and want to get our opinion. But yeah, and there's a number of things that could be thrown at them. Could be suspended from the Premier League, from playing Premier League matches, points deduction, recommended to the board that league matches be replayed. I don't know how that'll work. Recommend to the board that league expels the respondent club. Order compensation. They have loads of money. That's not gonna work really. Cancel or refuse registration of players. Conditional punishment. Order the club to pay costs. Again, money's not going to be an issue for them. Make sure other order as they fit, or come up with something else really. There's a lot of talk about this. There's a lot of questions in the chat as well. We go to the questions.
I'll tell you what, Pete.
Go to your section.
I'll tell you what, Daz, that picture you put up with Pep before, right? It's quite fitting after some of the interviews that obviously they were short about whether there'd been anything going. He's already making his excuses for leaving the kitchen, isn't he? Already, with all that fire going on in the background.
Exactly.
I'm looking at what he's smoking. I'm thinking, I want to throw that bad boy. I know Chris would.
That'll go well with the brandy, Pete.
It would. It would. When we win the trophy.
If we look at some of the questions, like I'll bounce up some of them here. Let's start at the top really. It's a twofold from Kari straight in at the start. I have a twofold question. How do you feel about what's happening at City, and do you know where Newcastle stand on it? And from Sky, many Premier League clubs want Man City to be kicked out of the Premier League if they're found guilty of breaking the rules. Yeah, that's what's all over Sky this evening. They're saying this, but I think their punishment would be a little less than that, as we've seen in the past. What do you think? What do you guys think will happen to them?
Go on, Richie, you start, mate.
Well, I certainly hope it's not a slap on the wrist, put it that way, because if these amount, even like 2 or 3 breaches, do you know what I mean? That's bad enough, but we're talking like 3-figure breaches here on numerous different fronts here. So, another joke. I don't know whether you saw this last night, but all the tweets from like Jose Enrique and Lucas, who used to obviously played for Liverpool, just sending out like the random sentence saying, "Am I a Premier League winner?" And everyone was like, "Going, oh, it's class that," because obviously, if they get Man City get all the titles took off them, are they then technically classed as a Premier League winner? But to be fair, I don't think going on that sort of thing. Changing Premier League history is going to be a bit impossible. Like all the record and stuff like that. But what you should be able to do going forward is stamp your authority and set an example, make them an example. Because then what you want is you don't want anybody to be try to do it again. There's always been a few, they had the way Dane caught with UEFA, and they went to the Court of Arbitration for Sport and wiggled the way out of that. And there's the same with PSG and stuff. And I think this is the main concern, I think, for Newcastle fans, because obviously, we're a similar sort of size of ownership to what City and what PSG have got. We're practically a state-run club, obviously, because the PIF is literally the Saudi Arabia's investment fund. I would like to think, though, because they are one of the wealthiest sovereign wealth funds in the world, and they're very, very savvy with their investments and connections, that they'll be all over this. And obviously, we've got to bear in mind this case has been looked into for 7 years now, 6-7 years. That this report has been going into by the Premier League. So our owners, when they've took over, will have known this was all going on in the background and what's been looked at and stuff like that. So the one good thing we've got is that Man City haven't. Obviously, they've tried to jump on the bandwagon a bit and try and do a bit of an Abramovich type thing. But obviously, when FFP was in play, which is impossible to do, the one benefit we had, and this is the one thing we've probably had to say thank you very much to Mike Ashley, was we didn't have any commercial revenue or any debts or anything like that. So they've literally come in. Our owners have come in with a blank canvas. So yes, okay, we've spent some money, a lot more than what we probably thought we would have, and I know there's lots of pullers out there thought we were going to splash the cash and go for your Mbappe's, your MSCs, and whoever. But we've done it sensibly, and we've even if you look at the deals that we're doing sensible deals. We're not just turning around and say, right, they want 75 million for Maddison. No, let's just give them 75 million for Maddison. No, if the deal's not right for us, then we walk away from the deal, and that's the way it's going to be and the way it needs to be. But there's that many business heads at Newcastle. I don't think we're going to go into that front down the line. We're pretty savvy on that one. We've got a lot of football people in the club, running the club now. So for me, I'm not concerned on that. But going back to Man City, I seriously think they need to be punished. And I mean, like we said this, when the Super League came about, we said that the 6 teams should have been punished heavily then. They didn't. You know what I mean? They got a little slap on the wrist fine, which is an out to them. Something really, really needs to be done with this, though. It's, we'll get on it before. We've got a few images to bring up once you've all had your little say on it, but it's pretty damning when we bring them up, like what we get into it. But I don't know what Daz and Chris's thoughts are on this.
You go next, Chris. Now your thoughts on everything, and you can even throw. When we go around again, we can say because there's a question there: who we having from City when it all plays out.
Riyad Mahrez. That's all I'm saying. They'll go to bigger clubs. Riyad Mahrez, Bernardo Silva, both are on the verge of leaving Man City. I take them all day long. Come on, easy. Come on, boys.
Especially Mahrez. I think Mahrez is superb.
Sensation.
Yeah. So yeah, Daz, if you could bring those bullet points up for me again, because I'll be honest,
sure.
when I was reading the bullet points, I was thinking, right, well, that won't happen, that won't happen, that won't
Oh,
happen.
these are, yeah.
Yeah. So I can't see. I think where it starts getting realistic, or where I think they will start, they will start looking at punishments. I'd say order compensation, so big massive fine. Cancel or refuse the registration of players. So I doubt they'll cancel them, but they could well refuse registration. They could put a transfer ban on them. I could see that. Conditional punishments. So I don't know how what the meaning of that is. I'll be honest. Yeah. But order the club to pay costs. Yet again, that kind of falls under the order of compensation. And then the last one's really ambiguous, isn't it? But yeah, for me, I can't see them suspending them from playing matches. I can't see points deductions. Well, I could see points deductions, but where I draw the line is, I don't think they will go back, and I don't think they should go back, because I know you were saying then, Rich, about it being tongue in cheek and players, potentially winning Premier Leagues that they didn't know they'd won and stuff like that, but. I'm not into all that, because even if you were, I don't know, say you were a Jose Enrique or whatever, and someone manged you up and went, "Oh yeah, you have won the Premier League," it's like, not only do you strip it of City, but then the Liverpool who get the Premier League, it's like, well, they've not. They don't feel like they've won it. Do you know what I mean? So I think history's gone now.
Waste of time.
Yeah. It's just like, just wipe it out. What would be more effective is if they give them a big fine. They said you can't sign any players, and then they give them, like, I don't know, like a 40-point deduction, and then they would then, because not just that, I don't necessarily want to see them drop the leagues and be relegated to like League Two or something like that. I would like to see them have a points deduction, so that one season for the following season they probably wouldn't be in the Champions League, and I think that would be punishment in itself. Because then they'd have to come back, and then obviously they can't sign any players, and players would be like, well, I'm not playing Champions League, I want to go. I think that would be more of a punishment myself, and then at least you're not dropping them 2, 3, 4, 5 leagues. Not saying I don't want them to drop, but I just think that would be a bit harsh, because what people forget as well, for me, you've got to look at the fans, and I think this is nothing to do with the fans, and I think to kind of put them back in League Two or whatever, you're punishing the fans even more so than the club. And I just think I'm just not into that myself. What I think will happen is I think they'll get a big fine. I think they'll get a big fine and a transfer ban. That's my personal opinion. And probably a final warning saying, listen, if you do that again, I mean, let's be honest, a couple of years down the line, Chelsea could be having the same conversation, couldn't they? Because Chelsea, if anything, you could say Chelsea have got even worse. Chelsea have gone worse than what City did, because Chelsea this season have just gone nuts. Yeah, they've just gone nuts, haven't they? And it's like, I know Todd Bowley thinks he's clever and everything, but if they don't get Champions League this season, that's when they're going to have to start panicking. They're going to have to start panicking.
I think I'll say that before you come back. If you go back to the bullet points that Chris was after, I think if you look realistically, the only thing that's viable for me, really, they're not going to kick out the league, because at the end of the day, and I think we probably agree with this, the Premier League will be worse without Man City in it, because obviously, the amount of money that the Premier League attracts, for, not just in the UK, but we're talking worldwide, because it's the best league in the world. For me, the one thing is that I think there's two things. The way I would do it is I would put like a transfer ban on them for 2 seasons, right? But the one that gets me is the one that really stands out for me, which it's similar to what Juventus happened to Juventus this season, because obviously they've just been done for financial irregularities as well this season. They had a 15-point deduction. Now, a 15-point deduction off City now, I'm trying to think, I haven't got the league table. I don't know if anyone's got the league table in front of them, but that's going to hit them really hard, because even though you give them a 15-point deduction at the start of next season, that there's a good chance that Man City would make that up over the season, because they've been winning. They could still probably come third with a 15-point deduction, realistically.
Hey, Rich, if you took 15 points off them, they'd be on the same points as Chelsea.
So someone said that earlier on today. I've just seen a comment.
Yeah,
someone said they would still be in the same position as Chelsea and Liverpool if they got that 15-point deduction.
Yeah,
which isn't a good position to be in.
Yeah. See,
No.
for me, that's the only thing you did, but you could only do it realistically this season because I don't think it would have that detrimental effect in the long term because they could still qualify for the Champions League next year, even with the 15-point reduction. It would need to be done now. Even that, I know it's obviously they can't take it to the court of arbitration and sport and stuff like that, but even if these allegations are there, even if one or two of them are brought about, that's it. They should be done anyway, straight away. I think Dallas has just put a post up there: 25-point deduction, 5-year transfer ban, and a 10-year Champions League ban. I don't think we'll ever get that extreme.
Jesus.
You know what I mean?
Don't mess with Dallas.
I'll be honest with you. I don't think Dallas is too far away, certainly with the point deductions. For me,
no, I think at least a 15-point. If you look at Juventus, it's got to be at least like for like.
But for me,
I'm not sure on the 10-year Champions League though.
And they have to play in raids forever.
For me personally, I'm looking at this situation, and we're all giving our opinions, and that's absolutely fine. But the Premier League wouldn't go as long as they have to try and get Man City down for as many years as they have to just slap them with a fine. A fine they can just pay easily. They're not going to do that. They're not going to go out their way and go, you know what, we've been tracking you for years and years and years. You've won Premier League after Premier League, Cup after Cup, and you put millions and millions and millions, multi-millions into that club. We're just going to give you a fine. They're going to go, okay, fine, fair enough, we'll pay you off. They are going to hit them at some point very, very hard. So in my opinion, if it was me, and it's not me, but if it was me, I'd be saying, you know what? You get either a 30 or 40-point deduction. But what we're going to do is this season, you get 15 points. Next season, you get 15 points. And the season after, you get 10 points. And you get deductions over the next 3 years that could potentially harm them for Champions League football over the next 3 years. And therefore, it's a significant punishment in that way. And that would be something that I think would be fair across the board. It would be a significant punishment to go, you know what? If any of you others are planning on doing the same, that's what's going to happen to you. And you think what's going to happen to Man City not getting Champions League football for 3 years? De Bruyne is off. Haaland's off. All the top boys are going. Pep is out the door. He said back in May, they put it on Sky Sports yesterday. He made it clear that if you lie to me, I'm out the next day. Pep's gone. So their philosophy and their way of football and what they've built for all of these years under Pep Guardiola is finished. So what it does, it doesn't just kick them up the arse in terms of points deduction. What it also does, it ruins the philosophy, and they literally have to start all over again. And they are not going to do what they've done under Pep Guardiola, because Pep Guardiola is one in a generational quality manager. He is the best manager outside of Sir Alex Ferguson that I've ever watched as a manager. He is unbelievable. And they're not going to get another manager like that. That completely ruins what they've got in place as a club. And that ruins them more than even a deduction and a hefty fine. That's my opinion.
Do you know what? Just to jump in. Oh, sorry, go on, Dash.
One sec, Chris. Yeah, I'm going to go one higher than Dallas and scrap all that. They have to put up with Steve Bruce for 2 years. That's enough for anybody as their manager. That's it. That's simple. Everyone is happy with that.
That's a bit harsh. That's a bit much. That like.
That's worse than the points deduction.
What do you think of this one? No, it's just been put in a 15-point deduction for every season they broke the rules going forward. So a bit like what you said, Pete. 15 next year, the season after. So if they've done it for, say, 4 years, they get a 15-point deduction for the next 4 seasons.
They've been doing it a lot longer than 4 years. Flipping hell. They might as well get back. They might as well just jump straight to League Two now. It'd be quicker and less painful to get back into the Premier League.
I tell you what, it's got like a Saudi plan here to goal 2030 there, isn't it? 15 points every season till 2030.
There you go. But what I'll say to you, and Richie, you made a really good point, because you talked about PSG in the same light, and PSG have done very, very similar in the same light. But you know what's different in this situation? Not just because they're in Ligue 1 And it's not as a high-profile league, but what Nasser Al-Khalifi did that was extremely smart is in 2019, he put himself on the executive board of UEFA. They ain't going to touch it because they make the decisions. He did what Man City didn't, and he was very, very smart. They're never coming for PSG because he is part of that decision-making. He was smart, even with everything around the Super League. They went to PSG, they went to Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich said no. PSG said no. But what he went and did, he put himself on the board and going, you know what? Whilst all these other clubs are buying for the extra money, we don't need the money. But what I need is position of power. Put himself on that position. They ain't going to be touched. So because PSG can't be touched, and let's face it, Nasser Al-Khalifa has been taken to court for various things on PSG and got away with every single one of them. They're looking around and going, who can we target now? Man City. And that's why they've gone for Man City, because they are the targets that they can actually get, whereas they can't touch PSG for the same thing. Juventus, exactly the same, have been done. And this is not the first time they've been done as well. And they got chucked down to Serie B.
Yeah.
Years and years ago.
If it affects them, this is the second time it's been affected Juventus.
Yeah, they had all their titles scrapped, and Chris, you mentioned it about you didn't agree with other teams winning the league in Italy in Serie A. It was just that season was just void. Nobody won the league.
Yeah, just
it
the
was
right
just void. They took it all off them. And if it was the same for City here, that would be exactly the same. No one else would win the title. It would just be considered void. But the problem is that the Premier League's so high profile, and we big up all those previous winners, that it would just put a massive scar on the Premier League, because it's never been a league that's considered to be like that. And I think that's what they're probably toying with right now. But they're just my kind of like little 2 pence with regards to the situation. But Daz, I know you've got some thoughts on it as well.
Well, just one. I'm going to be selfish here and go, what's in it for me, as in Newcastle? Once we finish above them, the points deduction would happen this season, that would allow us to continue our project and accelerate our project by getting into the Champions League and doing it the right way and following FFP rules that are in place. We assume that that's what they're doing. So that's me happy enough, because I can't see that an awful lot happening to City. They'll do something, but it'll be minor. All these talk of all these other things like getting rid of them on the Premier League, that's never going to happen. And even someone said, would that accelerate their thoughts again around going to the European Super League kind of thing, where there are no rules, they can do whatever they want. But yeah, I hope it benefits us, whatever it does happen, and that we get Champions League. Everything else, don't care so much.
I had two things, just to add in from before, boys, and it just, again, I'd love to hear your points of view. I was, funny enough, I was messaging Craig Lee about it earlier. Well, the first thing, just to add into what you said, Daz, about if City disappeared off the map, so to speak, it puts us firmly, at the top. I always remember, the picture when we got bought out by the Saudis, by PIF, and there was a picture of like a megalodon, and it was swallowing or about to swallow a great white, and City were the great white and we were the megalodon. The first thing I thought was, there's not going to be a great white; it's just going to be us. So yeah, that did cheer me up a lot when all the City news broke. But what I wanted to ask you all was, and this is what I was discussing with Craig Lee, there's definitely something in this, in terms of, like Pete was saying, there's definitely a seriousness to this, because I've got to admit, when I saw the comments from Pep, I thought, if I was the Man City owners, I'd be furious with that. Furious with it, because Pep's come out, hasn't he? And Pep's, like whiter than white, like, if they're lying, I'm leaving. And it just made me think, there's no way he doesn't know what's going on. In some respect, for me, I don't believe that he doesn't know, because he must be approaching the board. It's like us, with Eddie Howe. Eddie Howe be going, I want Maddison, I want Paqueta, I want Osman, and the boards are going, sorry, Eddie, we haven't got the money. This is kind of the money we're working with. Is there anyone you like? And he's like, I don't know. You can't tell me that the owners or, the finance, the people in charge at Man City haven't gone to Pep. Don't know if we can do that. But maybe, or they've rang them back and gone, oh yeah, go on, just get who you want. And Pep's not for, hang on, like, this seems a bit too good to be true. It's like when Pep first came in, he was like, yeah, I want Benjamin Mendy, I want Kyle Walker. He spent like 110 million on 2 wing backs. And you're telling me that he didn't know that, like, maybe that was a little bit expensive, should I say? And it just made me think when Pep's come out today and said, yeah, I'll walk, I'll do whatever. And Craig was right, saying that, it
was back in May.
What, sorry?
I think it was back in May that he said it.
Right.
May last year.
Well, I thought he'd said something today as well. Saying
he might well have. I've not seen it, so I apologise if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I might be wrong, mate. I might be looking at a quote previously. Yeah, but it just made me think: is it like? And this is the question I want to ask you boys: do you think Pep is completely in the dark about it all? Do you think that Pep knows anything about it, or because I said to Craig Lee, I went, let's be honest. Pep's not going to come out and go, yeah, we were a bit naughty, like maybe I shouldn't have done that and blah, 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 because then that's the end of Pep's career. That's Pep's career tarnished. So Pep can't say that he knows what was going on. Pep's going to deny all knowledge and then walk away and go, I don't want to deal with these shysters. When really, Pep must have been, I'm not saying he was in on it, but he's not stupid. Pep Guardiola is not stupid. And I don't know, what do you guys think? Do you think I'm being a bit harsh there, or?
I think, Daz, if you bring the slides up that you got from Sky before, and there's one of them that says manager reminiscence, isn't there?
This one.
Yeah. So there's 8 alleged Premier League rules for manager reminiscence. So that's got something to do with the manager. Now, obviously, it's over a long period of time. It could have been, Mancini. It could have been, do you know what I mean? It's not just to say Pep, but there's also a good chance that Pep does know about it as well, literally just because of that one there. Will we ever find out whether he does or not? No, but to be fair, it's more about the finance side of things. So if he's getting paid, he might not know he might just presume he's getting paid for by the club, but it's where the club's getting the money from, which we'll get into in a little bit. That's the main issue. So he might be getting paid as normal. He might go up and, like as Chris said, to be fair, you're paying 110 million on 2 fullbacks. Jesus Christ, that's a lot of money now. We're talking like 5 years ago, 5-6 years ago. That's like ridiculous then as well. Yeah. But I think look, a lot of the spending now isn't really what's under scrutiny, because they bought Haaland for just under 60 million at release cost. But what you see is now it's a bit like what Chelsea you've got. They're selling a lot of players for a lot of money as well when they go out. So it seems to be like that circle just going around now. But at that point, you've got to get there to start with, and it's that building block period in between the middle of when the City Group took over, and probably to when Pep came in, or just before. Whatever. This is where they've been mainly looking at what's been going on here, and that's, as you said, 110 million for 2 fullbacks. 110 million, it's ridiculous. Full stop. But the fact it's like, if he goes up and says, I want these 2 players, there's finance people at the club. Like you said, Chris, Eddie Howe's going to have a list and say, right, I want such and such, but we haven't got the money for it at the moment. So for all we know, City could be thinking, shit, if this is who he wants, we have to make it happen. We might not have the funds, but we have to make it happen. So, because everyone knows that Pep's probably, and I think you'd probably all agree with us, he's, as Pete said, he's one in a generational manager. So you want to keep that guy happy. You don't want him going to a rival, if you made him unhappy. So if he's saying, I want these 2 players, and they might go, shit, we've got 80 million really spare on, we haven't got any sellable assets at the minute. Right, where are we going to get 30 million from? And obviously, if they're tied up with with FFP and stuff, 30 million's a lot to fudge. Basically,
if you remember, Richie, I don't know if any of you guys do, but it was actually Man United that were closest originally to getting Pep Guardiola when Van Gaal was in charge. they wanted Pep Guardiola first. And Pep Guardiola was talking to Man United first. Man City swooped in and did the deal really early because they put the money on the table and said, we want you, we want that. And there was the big fallout with Pellegrini because he was basically sacked before he was realised he was sacked, before he was officially sacked. And this was, I think this was around in January. I think he knew he was going to be manager of Man City around in January before the end of that season.
Yeah, it was announced in that, like, it was a bit like the winter transfer window. Barney knew 6 months before he was starting. Yeah, you're right.
And that was the thing. And Pellegrini, I remember getting very agitated and angry in press conferences because he was having to answer these questions. You know, Pep Guardiola's coming into the club. Or, you know, what's going on? What's the situation? And this is all adding to the point that you're making, that they've had to put the money down to try and secure him because they didn't want Man United to get him, because they knew if Man United got him, he would do what he's basically done at Man City. But just going back to the point, I don't think Pep Guardiola is responsible for this. I don't think he's embroiled in this in any way. And I think he'll get away with it. And a lot of people in the chat have put the point that I was going to make anyway, is that actually it was Mancini and Pellegrini to a lesser extent, but it was Mancini, the one that was getting a lot of additional money for being manager of the club at that particular time. And so, you know, he's one that could potentially get done big time off the back of this if it all falls out the way it looks like it's going to fall out.
I've heard enough to as what you said there. When you're talking about Man United, I reckon we should relegate Man United as well. All in favour? Aye. All for that. So
get them down, second in the league. I'm happy.
Yeah.
I was going to say,
reserves in the cup. Yeah, like it.
I was going to say, before we move topic, obviously the reason why I brought up the 30 million, obviously if it was 80 million the kitty, was I don't know if anybody, I know the lads didn't know this until I brought the show before it started, but I was able to find some emails online, and I saw the podcast that was actually covering it, and it's actually some emails that have been leaked from Man City, and it's pretty damning when you actually look at it. So I'll bring up the ones that are easy enough to, the short ones first. Obviously, I'll read it out here. So this is, obviously, you can tell it's from an Andrew Widdowson at mcfp.co.uk. Yeah, he's fitting name with it there, Chris. I can hear you laughing in the background, mate. But obviously, he's obviously talking to someone called Simon Cliff at the club as well, and it's about the owner investment summary. And this is obviously January 2013. I will need to change this when I get in the office. We mustn't show the partner supplement if it is going outside of the club. So basically what happens is
allegedly.
We've got to say it's all allegedly at the moment. Hope you're well. As in previous quarters, can we ask your help in facilitating the amounts due via the Abu Dhabi partners? Obviously that's the City Group who owns them. In January next year, I attach a slide extract, we need to line up from the shareholder in January to be paid to the relevant partners. I have highlighted the relevant amounts in red. But in summary, we need the following of £27 million to be funded by Etihad. So basically what the email is saying is that the City Group Abu Dhabi partners have to pay Etihad 27 million, and so they're hiding the money, and then 27 million will be coming into the club books from Etihad. So it's artificial sponsorship, so to speak. So it's money, they're bringing more money at the club that they're not entitled to, basically. And then there's another long-winded one as well, which I'll not really go into. But if you actually look, there's some figures in the first paragraph. It's exactly the same. Can I ask the relevant amount to be routed through the partners and then forwarded on to us as part of overall fees owing? 35 million from Etihad and 16.5 million from Etisalat, which is apparently like the Dubai version of like satellite. So I don't know about you lads, but if they are true, then obviously these alleged rumours and allegations for me. Pretty sus.
That's Pep Guardiola walking out of Man City tomorrow morning. if those emails are real, that's Pep Guardiola walking out. Because I don't believe Pep Guardiola is involved in this. I don't think he would tarnish his reputation off the back of it. I really wouldn't. I really don't believe he doesn't need to.
He's a football manager. He's not a business manager. He doesn't know finances.
He doesn't need to accept additional money from this ownership. He could have left Man City 2-3 years ago and gone to any club. Any club would have taken him. He's the best manager in the world at this moment in time. I don't believe it. So that picture there is fitting, in my opinion, for Pep Guardiola leaving Man City if it comes out that any of this even remotely is true, because he will not want his reputation tarnished in any way, shape, or form.
I'm just wondering who's going to.
He's off.
Love it.
I'm just wondering who's going to be. I'm just wondering who's going to be funding the £80,000 a day lawyer that they've just hired to fight the Premier League. Where's that funding coming from? Because if it's going to be covering all those years of actually all this discrepancies, that's going to be some frigging way. Billy's going to slap to the City group at the end of it.
Tell them the name, Richie, and
yeah,
you're not going to believe what his name is.
I've got it's Lord Panic.
That's the lawyer's name.
Good Lord Panic, yeah.
Fits Man City perfectly.
Yeah.
So that's it on City, I guess. And for now, yes. I'm sure it'll play out as it goes on. Shout out to Dallas as well, who became a member. Cheers, Dallas, for joining us as a member.
Cheers, mate.
If you're new to the channel, anyone's new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. Anyone that would like to become a member like Dallas, just hit that join button as well. You have to kind of do it on a PC or laptop though. Also, make sure you hit that like button as well. Helps others to find this video. Yeah, Chris, go for it.
Just to add in, Dallas has became a member at a really good time, because we are imminently going to be doing the members draw for January gone. So
imminent
going forwards,
yes,
yeah, we're going to be doing a draw at the start of the month for the previous month. So yeah, a draw is imminent, everyone. So if you'd like to become a member and be in with a chance of winning the prize draw, you know what to do.
Good, nice one, Chris. Yeah, that's a good shout on that. Richie, this is open to everyone, but I think Richie, you're probably the best chance of having the latest information, because you've been following this topic. And it's a question from Alan Mattis. Sorry, it's been mentioned. Sorry if it has been mentioned. Any news on the land by the Strawberry?
Right. Well, the latest that came up last week is obviously the MP for Newcastle. She had put a response to the mayor about obviously the proposals. There was word going around that they might be using public funding to go ahead with the project that was meant to be going before the owner of the land went into administration. Now, the mayor actually got back to them, obviously, after everything was going on, and said that public funding will not be getting used for that project. But it also did state in the letter that they will be obviously seeing all of the different options that's viable to make the benefit Newcastle as a city, not just putting more flats up or more houses or whatever. It's essential, obviously, going into what she had mentioned in a letter about, it's important having a city centre football stadium. How it's iconic in the city. You can see it from pretty much anywhere you look in the city, from either side of the ground. But they also state that they need to do what's best for the club as well. So there's possibilities now that if everything goes right, that the land could become available to develop on, possibly. But obviously, there's still quite a long way to go yet.
Interesting. Another thing that's interesting to see how it plays out. It's never a dull moment, anyway. That's for sure. I have another question that and maybe I'll put this down to you, Chris, and we've got your opinion as well, Rich, because we kind of covered it, Pete, on the review show. And it's from John Askew. Does Eddie need courage to admit Maxi on Sunday? Is Maxi worth another start? It might be just match fitness he's lacking. I'm confused. So, lads, what are you having when it comes to Maxi?
Yeah, I mean, we could probably talk all night about this, couldn't we? This topic, but I'll keep it short and sweet for me. So I've seen over the past few days, a lot of criticism coming in for Maxi. And don't get me wrong, me and Pete have had this discussion on many occasions, and I'm not Maxi's biggest fan, but I do think the criticism he's had since that game's just been like mental. I do think it's absolutely mental. Like, he have his best game? No, he didn't. But was the effort there? Has he started the game in the last 4 or 5 months? No. And I just think, if he's still performing like he did on the weekend in the next 4 or 5 games, yeah, drop him. Like, change it up, mix it up. But I saw loads of things from Maxi at the weekend defensively that were really, really positive. And I forget who said it. It might have been someone else.
He did. There was a stat. There was a stat, Chris. You're right. I know you said he actually won the most tackles on the game at West Ham. He won 3 out of 3.
Said on the show.
Yeah. To be fair, I did see that one, but I saw a different one as well. And wasn't it saying something like, if he'd have stayed on the pitch for the 90 minutes and continued on the trajectory that he was in for the time he was on the pitch, he'd have covered something like 13 kilometers. It was like, I'm sure it was something like that, and that would have put him up there as being the player with the most running out of everybody. And no, I'm not saying he would have done that. We'll never know if he would have done that, but I just don't get. I think maybe he's not helped himself. Maybe he's saying, I'm going to come back. I'm going to come back with a bang. I'm going to wow you all. I'm ready. I'm fit. I'm raring to go. And I think we've all been waiting for that St. Maximin, and it hasn't appeared, and we didn't see it at the weekend. But I just think, like, we need to give him a little bit of time, and we need to. Pete's spoken about this before, saying that he's not the kind of player who will come on for the last 10 minutes and kind of give you everything that he's got. He's the kind of player that needs starts. He needs to get minutes in his legs. You'll then see the improvement in him. And I think if Maxi stays in the team for the next 2, 3, 4 games, whatever it is, I think you'll see a difference in Maximin to the one that you saw at the weekend. And as well, lads, he's probably a little bit low on his confidence. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's not been starting, and he hasn't been playing regularly, and he probably isn't feeling the love from the players and the love from the fans. Let's not forget, we keep talking about what it was like 6, 9, 12 months ago. St. Maximin was the be-all, end-all of Newcastle. If we were going to win football matches, it was down to St. Maximin. Now, he's probably, I don't know, is he probably like 7th, 8th, 9th on the list in terms of people going, oh, who's going to win you the match? Like, St. Maximin's name doesn't even get mentioned anymore. But, like, so he's probably feeling a little bit low for me. And the more games he starts, the more minutes he gets on the pitch, I think we'll start to see the old St. Maximin, but maybe a new and improved St. Maximin, because hopefully, Eddie Howe spent a bit of time with him, and we'll see the defensive attributes as well as the attacking attributes. And I just think to judge him on one game and not even a full game, I think is just a little bit harsh for me. So I hope he starts at the weekend.
Richie, your thoughts on ASM?
I think he'll start this week. I think definitely against Bournemouth. However, he may start against Liverpool. That might be the one where you see a change, the Liverpool game, because I can't see Eddie Howe potentially making a change if it hasn't gone to plan for Maxi for the final. I think you'll have a rough idea. Obviously, we know Bruno's going to come back in, so Maxi would possibly drop out on that one, because obviously you look at the formation that they've had when Bruno was in there. And for me, I think you need to still bring Joe Linton back into that mix. You need to bring Joe Linton back to the midfield, because we had this discussion earlier on anyway. That was short on centre midfielders, so there's no point having one of the options as a centre midfielder playing left, out on the left. Yes, he has fantastic work and stuff like that, and the press is there, but at the same time, we may have to manage Joe Litton, as we mentioned before, because of the amount of bookings he's got on as well. So that's something we've got to watch for. But I think he'll start this week, and you may see him in Liverpool now, because obviously Liverpool defence at the minute are shocking. So it might be a sort of game that ASM might thrive in, especially at St James's if the crowd can get behind them, and it's obviously a tea time kick off again. And you know what? He probably wants to prove a point for that game, because he'll want to start in the final as well. So he'll be going all out. If he doesn't do anything over the next 2 games, I think that's probably it. I don't think he'll be in for the final. I think he's especially. Yeah, I think Eddie Howe's not going to let people like that old rune that goes on that the players aren't going to put their all in because they want, in case they get injured for the final and stuff like that. Eddie Howe won't allow that, because he'll be saying, "Look, we're in the best position to get top 4 and win a trophy." So he's going to want every single person fighting to say it right. Look, if you're not going to fight, he'll want to play. He'll want to play. He'll want to come and take your position. So for me, I think ASM will be chopping at the bit to have these next 2 games to put that stake in that when Bruno comes back in, it's one of the 3 other centre midfielders, Joe Layton, Longstaff, or Willock, who's left out, and not him.
Yeah, I don't think he starts in the final. I think he knows that. I think these were his 3 games to play regular football to prove himself. I think if he's going to start in the final, he's going to have to score and assist. He's going to have to put 2 brilliant performances in, Man City-esque performances in, to start in the final. I don't think he will. I think Eddie Howe will go for his tried and trusted Joe Linton on the left, Willock in midfield. And actually, the point that you just made, Richie, actually kind of makes sense, really, because with Joe Linton 2 bookings away, playing him on the left-hand side actually helps him, because he's not right in the middle of the thick of things in midfield, which is where he tends to pick up his booking. So if you play him outside, he's not in the hustle and bustle. He's more outside and away from all that tough tackling and breaking up play and all that sort of stuff. It actually probably helps Joe Linton long term. So yeah, I don't see him unless he pulls out some amazing performance, some Man City type performance that he starts. But in my perspective, I've already said what I said with regards to ASM. He needs to run the games, and look, regardless of what people think of ASM, he does need to run the games. Every player needs to run the games. You're not going to play. I'd be shocked if Gordon starts, because just like he did with Bruno Guimaraes, you got to earn your place. You got to get your tactics right on the training pitch. You got to learn how he plays in the system. You got to do all that stuff. If you can come on and make a difference and win a game for Newcastle, great. Like Bruno did many a time, but still found himself on the bench until eventually it was like, right, you've earned your spot now. Go and play regular football, because he'd given Shelvey the opportunity to play. He'll do the same with ASM and he'll do the same with Gordon. But if ASM performs, he'll keep his spot, and then the light is then shined on Miggy Almiron. If Miggy Almiron's not performing, not scoring goals, not assisting, not doing all the rest of it, the light will be shined on him. So it's up to both of them, in my opinion, to prove their worth. Miggy's got goals and assists in the bank because of what he's done earlier on this season, but they've still got lots to prove, because neither of them have really played great recently. But yeah, it is what it is. We could be talking a very, very different story come the weekend. ASM could come in, make the difference, be a match winner. So could Miggy Almiron, and the situation is completely different. But yeah, I think both points you've made are great. I don't know if you agree, Daz.
I wasn't listening. No, I'm only joking. No, because I wanted to get in, and because I know Chris has a question, and but I want to give a shout out to Anne and Toon Army, who has become a member. Nice one, Anne. You were going to be in the draw that Chris has been talking about that we'll run pretty soon. But Chris, over to you for your question.
Yeah, so I've been meaning to ask you this question, and I just want, before I ask the question, I just want to tag on, to what Richie said, because I felt Richie made a great point, and Pete, you highlighted it, about Joe being played on the left, in order to avoid the chaos in the middle of the park, which sometimes there is. So the point that I wanted to make was, for me, I think Maxi starts against Bournemouth, but the big game is the Liverpool game at home. If Maxi doesn't perform in that Liverpool game at home, then I would start to see, if people were saying, the effort's not there, or it's not clicked, or he's not fitting into the system, or whatever, because that Liverpool game at home, late kickoff, game before the final, it's like that game is made for Alan St-Maximin. It's made for him. Alan St-Maximin didn't play at Anfield. We know how Maxi will turn up against the big clubs. And I think, as I say, he'll have 2 games under his belt then, hopefully. Maybe Gordon will come on for Maxi against Bournemouth. But Eddie Howe should have his arm around him and saying, right, this is your stage now. This is you. If you want a place in that cup final, this is where you perform, and you go and show me why you should be playing in that final. And if Maxi performs against Liverpool like he did against Man City, the game that we all speak about for St-Maximin, that could be the difference, boys, between top 4 and top 6. If we go, avoid defeat against Bournemouth and then go and beat Liverpool at home, because again, it sets out that market, it sends out that message to the rest of the league that we are here to stay, and that the likes of Liverpool aren't going to get near us. So for me, it's the Liverpool game that's the key one for me. But the question I wanted to ask, and you'll probably all think that I've been on the whiskey or I've been on the gin or whatever. And I'm not saying I think this, I'm just asking your opinions on it. We know that Eddie Howe likes to reward good performances. He likes tried and tested. He doesn't like to change a winning team. We play Bournemouth at the weekends with Alan St-Maximin playing left wing, and we win. And we play Liverpool at Liverpool at St James's, Alan St-Maximin left wing, we win. Do you think there's any possibility that Eddie Howe doesn't bring Bruno back for that final?
Eddie Howe is definitely bringing Bruno back. There's something wrong with him if you.
Well, that was just the stupidest question ever, wasn't it?
You just cut him off. You didn't even give him the chance to see our responses.
I didn't.
Hey, I'm not saying that's what I do. I'm not saying that. I love Bruno more than the next guy. But what I'm saying is, and I think it's a valid question. If you've got no Bruno for 3 months, for 3 games, and we could say we go and smash Bournemouth, and then we go and smash Liverpool. What does that say? What does that say to a Sean Longstaff or a Willock or a Joe Linton or a Maxi? Thanks very much for that. But the main guy's back. He's coming back in. Do you know what I mean? Like, what kind of message does that send? Because the Eddie Howe's philosophy, get your coat. Now, I'm not saying I would. I'd probably start him. I'm not going to say I wouldn't, but I just want to throw the conversation out there.
Oh, it's a good talking point, Chris. But I think, Pete, you were wrong. It's not a Chinese spy bloom behind Chris. It's an alien ship, and Chris has been abducted.
He's been probed. Chris has been probed by aliens.
Oh no! All these
Chris, is this
jokes are coming now.
Chris, is this the point there?
Craig Lee's on it. Craig Lee's on it. I'm not saying I would, but and people were talking, weren't they, about Bruno with the tackle, and they were going, "Oh, it's a bit hot-headed," and I'm not saying I don't want Bruno to start. I'm not saying that, but all I'm merely pointing out is, would Eddie Howe be thinking that? What if we go and smash Bournemouth and smash Liverpool, and then Bruno plays in the final, looks a bit rusty, looks a bit not ready, or lunges in again because he's dead excited? Would everyone then go, why did he change the team?
Unless it was Frank Bruno, Chris. We're talking about our Bruno. Bruno Gomarius, not Frank.
The one thing I'll add to what Craig Lee said, because it's an interesting point, because we've talked about ASM saying, he's not match fit, he's not match sharpness, he's not ready and willing to not willing, but he's not ready to play, at the level that we expected. For example, Man City, Wolves, or the rest of it. They're different types of players. Bruno Guimaraes, he's not as explosive as Alan Saint-Maximin on that left-hand side. For me, Bruno Guimaraes is one of them that keeps possession. He controls the game at his own pace. Okay, he can get the ball and he can dictate the play. Doesn't matter whether he hasn't played for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 2 days, 4 days. It doesn't matter. Bruno Guimaraes is the best player
ever,
most important player in our team. It was proven on Saturday. We win with Bruno Guimaraes in that team. There's no doubt about it. We control that midfield with Bruno Guimaraes. He has to play. He has to play. Him up against the likes of Casemiro is going to be a great battle, because it'll be a battle of possession. Bruno Fernandes, Casemiro against the likes of Joe Linton and Bruno Guimaraes. That's the battle in midfield. We cannot afford to not have him ready and playing for Newcastle United. It's just, there are certain players in our team that you just don't drop, or you don't consider dropping. Nick Pope's one of them. Kieran Trippier is another. Sven Botman, and you could argue Fabian Shaw, is one other. And Bruno Guimaraes is the next one. Every single other player, in my opinion, is up for grabs.
Just the fact that came out over the weekend as well, though. Newcastle haven't won a game this season when Bruno hasn't played.
Yeah.
Obviously, hopefully that's going to change over the next 2. Yeah, hopefully it's going to change over the next 2 weeks. But to before the final, but that's how it is at the minute.
Heads will explode, but it's the same for ASM as well.
There's the fishing line going out in it, Pete.
I'll get some comments in there. I'll get some comments. Whether it's now or later, I'll get some comments. But it's true. Then ASM put it in his article. He hasn't lost playing for Newcastle this season. Anyway, moving on.
Moving on, I'm just looking for a picture of Frank Bruno. Never mind me. We'll move on. That's pretty much it, lads. We'll start rounding it off, because we want to tell people what's coming up during the week. But we'll give a shout out to the sponsors first. I'll give you that comment. But yes, so shout out to the RadiatorShed.com and Russ, who was in the chat there as well, and one of our mods, and Chris and Richie in jail. Chris, especially for that comment about Bruno. What was he thinking? So if you want, for all your radiator heating needs, go on down to the RadiatorShed.com and Russ will sort you out. Some lovely new rads in there as well, in multiple different colors. And you've seen the lovely pictures that we've shown in the past. So if you're renovating or building a new house, call into Russ and he will sort you out. And also, if you need to get them installed, he has his other company, the Install Works. So check that out as well. Also, a shout out to H2O Bathroom Design Co., the Northeast's largest supplier of Velcro and bathroomware. Team Valley Gateshead, over 20 years established, ran by the family. Get down to the showroom on the 11th Avenue, Team Valley Estate, Gateshead. And Martin will sort you out there, and we'll give Richie a bit of a shower there. Not saying you need one, Richie, but we'll give you one anyway. Yeah. Head and shoulders. And if you need to see some of the bathrooms that they have there, lovely bathrooms on display. And I'm sure there's more, because I know they're working in a showroom. So together with Russ and Martin, they're linked up there. But yeah, that's a shout out to our sponsors. Coming up, next show from us, unless something crazy happens, will be on Thursday. Pete, take it away.
Yeah, we've got Tom Jordan back. Richie will know, because we had him for the Howe handover when he first
fantastic
when Howe first signed for Newcastle United. And Tom is extremely knowledgeable on all things Newcastle United, and it's a pleasure to welcome him back to talk all things Bournemouth and Newcastle. I'm sure there'll be a little bit of Eddie Howe in there as well, because Bournemouth fans in particular, Tom, is I think still reeling from the fact that Eddie Howe is no longer their manager, and he's really impressed, and we'll talk about it in great detail with regards to what he's doing at Newcastle United. So great to hear their perspective. As always, we know what away days is all about, the opposition perspective. So we'll get into that on Thursday, 7:30. I'm looking forward to the chat.
Nice one, Pete. And then over the weekend, after the match, either on probably Saturday, still up for Saturday night, but we'll discuss that when we're going to have this over the weekend, and we'll be back with the reaction show, bringing you our little run through our match ratings, the key discussion points, and a bit of everything else, and look at the league table, of course, and see where we're sitting after that game. It'd be really nice to get that win, get back in winning ways, and get a bit of momentum going in towards the Liverpool game, and then the cup final. But yeah, we'll be back with the reaction show over the weekend. That is it. Anything else, lads? Anything last bit of we want to cover? No,
I think we covered everything and more tonight.
We are.
Good chat.
Yeah. I guess that's one thing left to say. Thanks for everyone for watching. Thanks for anyone that knew that subscribed or became a member. Make sure you hit that like button. And how'd you like that?
Drink it.